Okay, welcome everyone. It is 6 p.m. So we will begin our webinar and I will let our Director of Housing and Social Services, Jane Hartley, start us off.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jane Hartley, Director of Housing and Social Services here at the City. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, taking the time out of your busy schedules to learn about the 10-year housing and homelessness plan for the City of Kingston and the County of Frontenac. When we checked registration, we had 47 people registered, so we will give everyone 30 seconds just to get settled in. And as you're settling, you're welcome to visit the 10-year housing and homelessness plan. So we'll just give a few seconds for people to settle in, grab a drink, pen, anything else you might need.
And as folks are settling in, I did pop a link in the chat to what's called a mural board. So we'll explain how to use mural in a moment. But if you would like to, and there's no pressure, you don't need to. If you would like to, just click the link in the chat. There's no need to set up an account or anything like that. So that'll just take you into kind of a shared space that is like a digital whiteboard we'll be using to facilitate some of this discussion. And we're very happy to help with any tech challenges that you might have if you just pop any of that in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Lily. I'd like to hand it off now at this point to Kelly Black. She's our manager of affordable housing to lead the land acknowledgement. Over to you, Kelly.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening for our webinar. We would like to begin this evening with our land acknowledgement. The City of Kingston acknowledges that it is on the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and thanks these nations for their care and stewardship over these lands. This evening, we will begin the presentation to explain what the 10-year housing and homelessness plan is and how the updated plan will be developed, after which there will be an initial question and answer period, followed by an interactive activities to provide feedback, which will help inform the plan alongside local data, needs assessment, and other planning documents. So this evening, I'd like to introduce the staff who are supporting the project. We have Lily Clark, who is a principal with Being Group, and she is leading the review and the community engagement. Diego Martinez, it is a consultant with Being Group, and he is supporting the plan review and the engagement. Myself, and I'm joined by John Henderson on our team. He is a housing program administrator, and we are here this evening to help answer questions about the 10-year plan. And Miles Brackenbury and Lauren DeRoche from our city communications team, who will be moderating and the Q&A sessions or the Q&A this evening and providing technical support for our attendees. So I'll now turn it over to Miles, who will go over the guidelines and the technology for this evening.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. And if you're having any technical issues thus far, please do utilize the chat, and we'd be happy to help you out with that. I'm just going to be going over our guidelines for this evening. So some of you may have joined us before at a city webinar, but for those of you who are here for the first time, we're happy to have you, and we'd just like to go over our guidelines for participation, how we hope to ground today's discussions, and also share some information about how we're going to make sure that we get as much information and as many questions answered here today. So of you and everyone, we ask that we be respectful of our fellow participants, that we are open to all ideas, and that we adhere to our process and time frame. So this evening, we anticipate the presentation portion will be completed in the first hour, and then the interactive elements may go to 7:30 or a bit after if there are ongoing questions that we can help answer for you all. If there is any change of process during the session, we will let you know ahead of time and make sure everyone has the chance to speak without interruption. So towards the end of the webinar this evening, you will have the opportunity to raise your hand if you have a question that you or feedback you'd like to provide orally. And we may offer a time limit based on time, but will look to not interrupt you and ask that you do the same for others. And then also try to include everyone. And should you have a cell phone handy while you're off mute, please make sure that is turned off. Unless, of course, you're joining us from a cell phone, then of course, please leave it on and stay with us. Moving on to how to ask a question. So here you can see the instructions for how to ask a question during a Zoom webinar. So the best way to submit a question is through our Q&A tool, which you will see along the bottom of your screen here. So during Q&A, we will be reading out questions, and then the project team will be responding. So use in the Q&A helps us track which questions have been received and answered, and also as we receive some questions that are similar or the same, it also makes sure that we're not repeating ourselves. So if you would like to verbally ask a question, that's where you'll be able to raise your hand, and then we will invite you to come off mute and ask that question verbally. We will be prioritizing the written questions so we can help sort things thematically, and then we will get to any outstanding oral questions as well. Yes, so finally, technology troubleshooting. If you have any issues with your Zoom, if you cannot hear us, or if there's a link that you're missing, we're also going to be using Mural board this evening, then please do not hesitate to send a message in the chat, and we would be happy to help you. I do see we have one guest with their hand raised right now, and I see that you're wondering if questions emailed ahead of time will be answered. Yes, thank you. We will be responding to those questions that were asked ahead of time the best of our abilities. Any questions that we don't get to this evening, we will respond to in our webinar summary on Get Involved Kingston, which will be emailed to you as attendees of this webinar, and if you're a subscriber to the Get Involved Kingston page. So we will answer every question to our best of our ability tonight, and those questions that may not be answered this evening, we'll commit to getting back to you on Get Involved Kingston. So without further ado, I will pass on to the presentation to Lily, and I will show you the mural board as she takes us through the presentation and introduces you to the 10-year Housing and Homelessness Plan Review and Update.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Miles. And it's such a pleasure to be with you today, or this evening, rather. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk about the 10-year Housing and Homelessness Plan. We, as Miles has mentioned, we will be using Mural, which is essentially a big kind of digital whiteboard that we can all engage in interactively. So there are several cool kind of functions that I'll just let you know about if you would like to use these, and there is no there's no pressure if you don't want to. If you just kind of want to watch the webinar and follow along that way, that's no problem. But one thing that you can do is you can add sticky notes. So anywhere in the mural board, you can double click and you can type. So any comments or questions or feedback to the material, you're welcome to leave that in here. You can also come back to the mural board. So using the link that we've added to the chat, if something, sometimes a thought occurs to you after a session, you can always come back to the link and go back into our mural board and leave a sticky note. So that's no problem as well. And if you do have any questions about Mural, please feel free to leave that in the chat, and one of us will help you. But again, there's no pressure to use Mural if you don't want to. So more than welcome to just follow along. Okay, so let's start with what a 10-year housing and homeless plan is. Like we have on this page here, it is a long term, so a decade, evidence-based roadmap that helps to ensure residents have access to safe, stable, and affordable housing, and to prevent and reduce homelessness across both Kingston and Frontenac. It's a provincial government requirement, and so it's mandated in Ontario. And it aligns with a whole range of other provincial strategies like Home for Good, as well as federal programs like Reaching Home. So it's part of kind of a network of strategies and plans for how housing will be delivered and how homelessness prevention and homelessness solutions will be delivered as well. Like I said, sets out a 10-year vision. So it's really important in thinking about where do we want to be in Kingston and Frontenac in 10 years and how are we going to get there? And it has 3 to 5 year targets and actions that map into that 10-year vision. So breaking it down into smaller kind of bite-sized targets. How are we going to achieve that 10-year vision? It also includes measurable outcomes. So, tangible or concrete things that we would like to deliver along the way, as well as public reporting. So there are very kind of specific public reporting requirements to ensure that everything is transparent and that folks understand where are we along the way in terms of our progress against our 10-year plan. The way it's written, and we'll get into this a little bit more, is based on both local data. So we look at things like demographic information, we look at inflow into homelessness. We look across a whole range of different kind of statistical and data-based reporting. And it's also based on community engagement. So, like I said, we'll touch on this in just a moment. But we're really kind of working right across the spectrum to better understand what does the community want from the 10-year plan. And we're also working with housing and homelessness providers. We're working with folks with lived and living experience of housing insecurity and precarity, and really trying to understand what are the range of perspectives that folks have on housing and homelessness in Kingston and Frontenac. It really does cover the full housing continuum. That's kind of all the way from preventing homelessness to emergency shelters to supportive housing, which is where folks are unable to live independently and require supports to do so. Through to affordable housing and even home ownership. So right across the spectrum, we're thinking about what are the range of needs and trying to balance those across Kingston and Frontenac. If anyone has any questions, please do drop those into the chat, like Miles said, but I'm going to move on to the next of our slides here. And so you might be wanting to know, oh, weirdly, Miles, it is not following me. Maybe I can summon you. That's odd. Oh. So you might be wondering what's been accomplished in Kingston and Frontenac since the last plan's update. So the last plan was updated in 2019, and a whole range of progress has been made. So it's really important that when we're thinking about the next 10 years, that we're building on what's working and that we're looking at the successes that we've had over the last 10 years, in addition to starting new projects and thinking about what else we could do, because we're not starting from scratch here, and that's really important. And so, there are a whole range of different projects and initiatives that we have listed here, both across shelter and supportive housing, across affordable housing and social housing as well. I don't know, Kelly or John or anyone else in the team, if you wanted to touch on any of these projects in particular. Yeah, if there was anything that you wanted to highlight.
Sure. Thanks, Lily. I'll hit some of the highlights. These are, we brought together, aggregated the numbers across these different housing and homelessness p components of the continuum. So there was a number of project completions since the last plan was developed. And just to some of the highlights, so there's been 95 new emergency shelter spaces. So those exclude the temporary ones like the winter warming centers and those sorts of things. There's been 183 new transitional and permanent supportive housing units. So some of the groups that have been served by those are individuals with mental health and addictions challenges, Indigenous community members, vulnerable adults, and people with developmental disabilities. So those were transitional supportive housing projects targeting those populations. There's been 73 transitional housing units that are currently under construction. There's 35 additional transitional housing units in development. So there's a lot happening in the transitional and supportive housing sphere. And in affordable housing, there was 189 new affordable housing completions among 13 projects. There's 39 affordable housing units currently under construction, 187 units in the development pipeline. And another item under our homeownership program, there was 40 households supported in purchasing a home through that program. And on the social housing side of things, so that's rent-geared income housing, the Kingston Frontenac service areas legislated to maintain 2,003 units. And in recent years, that number has been increased, not on the legislative wise, but just going above and beyond that threshold to nearly 2,200 units. So those are some of the highlights at an aggregate level.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. So as you can see, lots and lots of progress right across the housing continuum. And there was a question about whether social housing was part of the plan and part of the continuum. And as you can see, yes, it is. So that's great. I'm going to shift over and I wonder if the following tool is working or not, but maybe not. Nonetheless, we're following along now. Thanks, Miles. And so, you know, as we've kind of gone through, the current plan has driven a lot of really important progress across the community. But there is a need for a new plan, and the system is kind of operating at capacity in some ways. So we're looking at things like rising homelessness and complexity of needs. We're looking at limited supportive and affordable housing supply in terms of what the demand is for those services. We're looking at increased demand on wraparound services, so mental health and addiction supports. And we're also looking at affordability crises for renters and prospective homeowners. These are not unique to Kingston and Frontenac. These are challenges that are experienced right across the province. So, you know, working to look at what other jurisdictions have done, look at doing kind of research on what's working to overcome some of these challenges is really a big part of our project and our approach here. And it's also important to mention, I think, that municipalities are not only responsible for delivering housing and homelessness, but a range of other services. And so thinking about the competing pressures across various service program and budget areas is another important consideration when we're thinking about what can be achieved in the next 10 years and how do we want to go about delivering some of the community priorities. Okay, we're now going to move into a video, this has just some background information on the housing continuum as well as on the City of Kingston's role as a service system manager. I'll get into a little more on what that means, but this video, at least I think we're going to play until 1 minute and 10 seconds, explains some of that. So we'll play the video and then we'll keep going with the presentation.
Yes, and Lily, I'll just briefly unshare and reshare my screen just so we can share audio for this video.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Right.
Okay, so I will. Oh, so you need to do that? Okay.
Yes, I'm just sharing now. Great. Okay, we should have audio now. So yes,
So
please.
I
I
don't know.
haven't
It
started
makes
the video, so I'll press play and feel free to shoot us a message in the chat if you cannot hear the video.
cool. So it should work if you just double click on that, but you may have a faster way to launch it. There you go.
The City of Kingston is investing across the housing continuum, with Kingston's new shelter on Sydenham Road now open and 3 supportive housing properties welcoming residents. The City of Kingston is legislated by the province as Service Manager for Housing and Homelessness. As the Service Manager, the City of Kingston is responsible for creating and implementing a housing and homelessness plan that defines the local vision for housing. The City allocates and distributes funds in alignment with this plan through service agreements with agencies that deliver affordable housing and homelessness services. Healthy communities have a wide variety of housing solutions available that reflect the unique needs of the community. Service managers are responsible for maintaining a housing continuum that reflects these housing needs. The City of Kingston's diverse homelessness services meet people where they are along the continuum. The housing continuum describes the range of housing options available to people, from emergency shelter and transitional housing, through supportive housing and ultimately independent, market or subsidized housing.
Awesome. Thank you, Miles. You may recognize the voice over there, which is our one and only Miles. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that video. And so just to kind of build on some of what the video talked about there, the city has a role as a service system manager, which is kind of a technical or jargonistic term that some of you might be familiar with and some of you may not be, which is fair enough. Basically, what it means is that the city doesn't deliver everything in relation to housing and homelessness, but it does play a really key central role in the housing and homelessness service and program delivery, coordination, funding, and oversight. And so maybe we can explain a little bit more about what that means. So in terms of system planning, so thinking about the next 10 years, for example, exactly what we're doing here and developing the 10-year plan, the city obviously plays a lead role and develops that system plan. And that helps to identify need, what's necessary for the community over the next 10 years, based on what folks like you will tell us, based on all of the focus groups and open houses and surveys that we're running, based on engagement with providers, and based also on the data that we're gathering and the statistical analysis that we're doing. The city also has a key role in terms of administering funding and allocating resources based on the plan. So funding, much of which will flow down through the province, is then allocated to various projects, various programs and services that are already set out under that 10-year plan. The city is then kind of administering and flowing through that funding. The city also promotes a whole range of innovative housing technologies from those who are able to deliver it. So modular builds is one example of an innovative technology that can help to support greater housing supply. It also develops strategies to increase the supply of non-market housing. And that's another really important way to help increase supply and meet community needs in a range of different ways. It helps by overseeing programs to ensure accountability and outcomes. So if there are particular, for example, homelessness programs that aim to help prevent homelessness, the city will, and the city is kind of funding those programs. It will oversee those to ensure, we said we would do X, let's make sure that that is happening, and that funding is being spent and accounted for appropriately, and the people that we're aiming to help are being supported appropriately as well. Encouraging the creation of more mixed income housing options. That's another really important way that the city helps with supply. Tracking data and performance, and then using that to adjust the strategy or that 10-year plan. Again, really important to better understand what are the kind of emerging needs of the community. Where are the gaps? What are people telling us is a problem? What are we seeing in terms of, social housing data, in terms of homelessness and shelter data? And what does that mean in terms of how we're delivering against the plan? Or where we might, for example, need to adjust based on new or emerging needs. And then, really importantly, working in partnership with a whole range of different agencies across the spectrum. So, private developers being one, nonprofits, Indigenous organizations, the health system. So we have lots of the different kind of organization types that the city works really closely with in this little diagram here. And so you can see some of the ones that I mentioned in addition to others, advocacy groups being one of them, homelessness service providers, including shelters, those wraparound support providers I mentioned earlier that help with basic needs like mental health supports and food banks and all of those really important social service infrastructure or partners rather. And we obviously have mentioned that this is a 10-year plan for Kingston and for Frontenac as well. So the City of Kingston is that service system manager. So the role that we've just kind of been outlining there for not only the City of Kingston, but also for the County of Frontenac. And so as part of and hopefully we have some folks from the County of Frontenac on this call today, we are certainly inviting residents in Frontenac County as well to complete the survey, to attend any of our pop-up events, and we're meeting with lots of kind of folks who live and work in Frontenac as well as in Kingston, to get a better sense of the range of different needs that exist in both areas. Again, if you do have any questions, please leave those in I think it's the Q&A tool along the bottom, and we'll do our best to address those briefly. And I mentioned the importance of engaging with lots of different folks to better understand what you'd like to see in the plan and what your current and maybe recent housing needs have been. And so this slide here just provides a little bit more information on who exactly we are engaging with. So working from left to right, we're meeting with elected officials, including the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee, with city councilors, and also with county, or rather with township mayors. That's really important, a really important part of the process. We're also meeting with city and county staff who focus on housing, on homelessness, on community services, on economic development, on transit, on parks, libraries, all of the kind of key services that are related and very important in helping to address housing and homelessness needs across the community. And many of those individuals who have technical knowledge, for example, that can be important in reflecting in the plan and in thinking about the art of the possible. We're certainly meeting with homelessness and housing providers. Again, some folks might be on the call, which is great. We are having focus groups for those individuals as well, and for those organizations, because those partnerships are incredibly important to the city. And so that would include nonprofit, for-profit, supportive housing, transitional housing, shelter services, you name it, really key partners. We're also meeting with via focus groups, community partners. And so again, I've mentioned those wraparound supports that provide health or social services. Definitely meeting with folks there to better understand what are they seeing in terms of the people that they serve, in terms of the community need, in terms of kind of that frontline perspective. We're meeting with Indigenous partners, and so that includes organizations that are focused on housing Indigenous individuals and families, as well as Indigenous health and well-being planning tables. Again, a really key perspective. People with lived experience. So we're meeting with folks who have experience of homelessness or of housing insecurity or precarity, and holding focus groups with them. And then we are meeting as well, obviously, with the public. So with you, thank you again for your attendance today, for the questions that you've posed in advance. And in addition to this webinar, we are also launching, or we have launched a public survey. So there is a link to the survey in this mural board. If you look, if you scroll down, it's in the bottom left corner of the whiteboard, with a link straight to the survey as well as a QR code. But I believe Miles may have also emailed out a link to folks who are attending, or if not, it's also on the Get Involved Kingston page. There we go. There's a link to the survey in the chat right now. Thank you, Miles. That's awesome. Thank you to those of you who've already filled it in. If not, you will have until the end of the month, until May 31st to do so. So there's lots of time, but we do really encourage you to fill that in, to take the kind of 5 or 10 minutes, just so that we really have a good handle on what it is that you would like to see in the plan, and what your kind of specific needs and experience are. The more data that we have, the better, and the more ability we have to reflect the range of community needs in the plan. There are a couple of other planning tables that are not mentioned here. So just to kind of emphasize the extent of the engagement that we're doing, we are meeting with planning tables that focus on the needs of youth, of newcomers, and also of older adults. So again, we know that there are lots of different types of needs for housing, and the needs of a newcomer might differ from an older adult or from a young person. And so we're thinking about all of those different perspectives and trying to balance those in the plan. And like I mentioned, we're also looking at data, at trends, doing jurisdictional research across 7 other Ontario service system managers or jurisdictions, many of which are kind of comparable to Kingston in terms of some of the pressures that they're experiencing. And like I said, we're really trying to understand what is it that they have done to help overcome, or take an innovative approach to dealing with some of the challenges, or where have they had successes that might be replicated in Kingston and Frontenac. So that is the kind of overview of the plan itself and the process that we're running. What I'll do now is turn it over to Miles and the team to go through any questions that have come up through this presentation, as well as any that were sent in advance. And then once we've gone through that, we have a more interactive portion, Miles mentioned, where we'll be asking you some questions as well. So Miles, over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Lily. So the way this next portion of our webinar is going to work is we will go through the pre-submitted questions as well as any questions you've added here tonight and continue to add to our Q&A. And then a member of the project team will come off mute to give a response. And feel free to ask follow-up questions in the Q&A. And when we've gotten to all of those questions, we'll also open up the floor if anyone would like to raise their hand for any clarification or additional questions. And we'll do our best to answer questions to the furthest extent tonight. And if there's anything we don't have answers for this evening, then we will be adding those responses to the Get Involved Kingston summary. So I think a great place to begin, one of the questions we received was, is there a copy of the draft plan for citizens to review? So I think this would be a useful one for the project team to clarify at what stage of the process we're in.
Sorry, I'm just finding my video. I can get started with that one, and then certainly members of the team can weigh in. So currently on our website, we do have our current existing 10-year housing and homelessness plan available for review, as well as our annual reporting is also posted on our website. I will note that the 2025 reporting is being paused as the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is reviewing the framework by which they want service managers such as the City of Kingston to report out. So currently we're in a very robust engagement stage, as has been mentioned by Lily in her presentation. And so we're gathering information at this time. We will be engaging with our Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee, which is a meeting that you can join virtually, where we will be presenting the findings of the engagement in June. We'll be bringing the draft plan to the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee at the September 17th meeting for approval to then go to the City of Kingston Council in October. And so that is where how we'll be developing and moving forward with the draft plan, looking for approvals from those committees and then council.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for that response, Kelly. And moving on to a next question was, how will the 10-year housing and homelessness plan address the underlying causes of homelessness?
I can start with that one as well. Or John, did you want to weigh in?
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. Homelessness obviously is quite a complex issue. There's a lot of underlying factors. Housing is one of the components in resolving homelessness. The plan is going to, or the process involves consultation with individuals who have been homeless or are currently homeless. So there'll be input received directly from the individuals, as well as consultation with support service providers. So frontline staff that work with individuals that are experiencing homeless or who have in the past. So that's a component of the process that we'll get at understanding some of what those underlying issues is. But it's definitely a very complex component of the work because those underlying issues have a wide range of reasons outside of just housing as their specific form.
If I could just add on to that. And so we work very closely with our health partners throughout the city and the county to provide supports collaboratively to support those who may need wraparound supports, mental health and addictions, or even aging in place and complexities that individuals will need to be able to live independently. And some of the ways that the city is looking to move forward is to work on implementing solutions and resources to improve housing stability across the various levels of the continuum, from those who are experiencing homelessness through to getting to a point where they can live independently. And so with a more of a focus of being proactive and preventative versus reactive, looking for longer term solutions around housing stability, acknowledging that this takes more than the city's response. It really takes a collaborative response across our communities and across our partners that are working to support the individuals that need that.
Thank you very much, John and Kelly, for those responses. And I think some of these questions have been answered throughout the presentation. But a good question was just about broadly, and it's worth reiterating, kind of how will the plan ultimately be decided? What is that process?
Oh, John, you beat me to it. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, thanks. So the review and update of the 10-year plan is informed from stakeholders and consultations. So the activity is occurring tonight, as well as the ones that will be happening over the coming months, and the surveys responses that will be coming in. So the input will be gathered and guide the decisions and the direction provided to council for the plan. And it'll guide investments in the design of programming for the upcoming 10-year period. And the plan will work alongside other municipal plans, such as the official plan to streamline development process for housing. So it works in connection with other plans of the city as well.
So I'll just also add into that through the engagement it will inform the development of the plan, what goals, objectives, performance metrics that are included in the plan. And then we will be bringing that forward to the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee for approval to then move that or to present to county or to city council in October for their endorsement of the plan. And then also we are legislated to submit our plan to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who will not approve the plan, but they will review it and provide comments to us for consideration. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And our next question here is, how is the plan addressing those who are most vulnerable? How is the plan going to support those who are dealing with addictions, etc.?
I can start with that. And so I think we answered a bit of that in a previous question, and just acknowledging that we work in collaboration with partners across the city and the county who have that level of expertise to provide those wraparound supports for those that need that pertaining to mental health and substance use. And so we might be the funder or we may be a partner, depending on what the support is. So I know some of the things that we do with the city was the creation of the supportive housing with wraparound services. We've invested in more outreach and prevention services for those that are experiencing homelessness, to address some of the preventative measures on that side, and working collaboratively with our partners to address some of the root causes. And we know it's very complex, and certainly does take all levels of government to be able to invest in those solutions. It certainly isn't something that the City of Kingston will be able to resolve on its own. It certainly does take that continued advocacy at all levels of government to be able to continue that long-term investment to be able to address those pressures on our municipalities.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. And our next question I can respond to as it pertains to communications and engagement. That question is, will the city be informing residents before purchasing housing in residential areas before the property purchase is made? So for this question, the city follows the requirements of the Municipal Act from 2001. And because property acquisitions involve sensitive negotiations, they are typically conducted in a closed session in order to protect the taxpayers and city's bargaining positions. So as a result, advance notice is not possible in those instances. That said, the city is committed to transparency and will inform residents as soon as possible following acquisitions. There also is currently report being done where we're researching other approaches to communications and engagement around housing projects. So the City of Kingston the council will be seeing a report this summer where they will hear about the results of that report, learning from other municipalities to see what additional communications can be done in order to ensure residents are informed and aware. And for our next question, there is a question about, and I believe this one was answered, Lily, but if you'd like to elaborate on whether senior citizens who are unhoused are being engaged in this process.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks, Miles. Yes, so we're super interested in the views of of senior residents of both Kingston and Frontenac. And we know that they experience particular challenges around or needs, have particular needs both around housing and homelessness. And so a couple of the ways that we're engaging with them, one is through planning tables that are specific, have been created to accommodate or to think about and to plan for the needs of seniors. So there is an older adults forum, which the city is a member of, and will be engaging with that group. We're also engaging broadly with the public as well, and where we really do welcome senior individuals to participate in those processes. But we're also engaging with people with lived experience of housing and housing precarity rather. And so we're seeking out the experiences of older adults as part of that process, so that they can kind of speak directly to what their experiences are. Yeah, those are some of the kind of key ways that we're looking at their experiences. The survey is another important way, I think, if folks find that to be a more convenient way to engage. And Kelly, you might have something to add to that too.
Sure, I do. That was great. Thank you, Lily. And I'll also mention we are engaging with housing providers who provide housing for our seniors population in the county and the city of Kingston, as well as there's been engagement with long-term care as well as staff in our community as well, just to look at that perspective.
Sure.
Great, thank you both. And I think you answered a couple of questions in that response about how the population of individuals who are experiencing housing insecurity or who are unhoused are being considered in focus groups. And then also that seniors housing is important component in consideration of the 10-year housing and homelessness plan among all the other groups.
Yeah.
The
And maybe
other, yes, Lily.
Sorry, and maybe just to add to that, we do in the survey also ask for particular groups that folks feel are in kind of have maybe higher needs, or that would be identified as particularly vulnerable populations. So we're really interested to see what comes back from the public and from you folks as well, and anticipate that seniors might kind of come out as a group that many realize have kind of higher needs. We're also just on Miles's point around engaging with people with lived experience of homelessness. We're also engaging with a youth shelter to better understand the specific needs of children and youth who are homeless. Yeah, important to get that perspective too.
Great. Thanks so much, Lily. And another question here that I can just respond to quickly, and hopefully the presentation has also made this clear. One question we received ahead of time was whether this review covers all housing or is just limited to housing under Kingston Frontenac Housing Corporation, which the City of Kingston coordinates with. So this is all housing in the municipality, and as service manager of City of Kingston and County of Frontenac, the City of Kingston is, as mentioned, making this high level plan to try to guide housing and homelessness services over the next 10 years. Another set of questions before we get to our questions that we received this evening. I'd like to acknowledge that there were many specific questions about whether there could be more rent geared to income, whether how housing complexes can meet the needs of those with lower income, whether there would be provisions to help with address dangerous drugs, as well as can there be incorporation of the social medicine model among other questions about retrofitting and accessibility, and also help supporting from different levels of housing along the continuum. So will there be homeless outreach? And will there be more overnight warming centers created during the winter? And as well as the potential for tiny homes. So all of these questions are really, really important and very specific to approaches that would be considered. And we encourage everyone here tonight or those watching the recording to mention these when you complete the survey or when you engage on the mural board, as the housing and homelessness plan is currently in the review and update stage. These are the ideas that the city and Beam Group is seeking from the community, as well as other communities, uh, both fellow municipalities in Ontario and Canada, as well as elsewhere. So those kind of specific solutions are certainly welcome, and that's what we'll be getting to in the interactive portion of tonight. But I just wanted to acknowledge that those specific questions were raised, and well, they cannot be answered specifically tonight. If you have ideas, feedback about how to improve the or add to the current system, then that is exactly what we're looking for from you. So I'll move to the question received from tonight, and this is a really good one. What is considered affordable housing? If project team member could answer that.
Sure, thanks, Miles. So there's a very straightforward definition for affordable housing that's adopted by many organizations, and that's a below market rate housing. So and housing that shouldn't cost more than 30% of your household income. So that's the metric that's used quite often. But within the context of the housing continuum, it could mean a lot of different things. So transitional housing, supportive housing, public housing, those could all be affordable housing. So it's difficult to it can be difficult to clarify exactly what we're talking about, but it can range from anything from someone getting a rent subsidy or perhaps a working household that can meet their needs to someone in a much more supported situation where they've got an affordable rent, but also supports ranging from light supports to intensive. So it can mean a lot of different things, but it really comes down to whether that household or individual can afford those costs relative to the other costs of living.
Great. Thanks so much for that explanation, John. Another question we received this evening was interest in knowing how many of the new housing projects, shelters, and supportive housing is mixed gender, and how many are only for women identifying individuals. If someone would like to speak to that.
Thank you for that, Miles. I'll
Oh,
get started, and John, I'm sure you can weigh in as I might miss some points. And I'll just say we are aware that co-ed housing or housing that is not specific to males or females is something that we're aware of that isn't ideal for everybody. And so as we look to provide housing options to the various needs across the community, those are some of the things that we are considering. And I don't have the overall numbers, but I'm sure as we look to post on our Get Involved Kingston page in our summary, we can look to provide better responses. But just recently, we did have a women's shelter open last November that does have 20 beds, as well as one of our supportive housing homes that opened recently is also one is for women and two are for males. We also have another women's shelter that does have 30 beds as well. So those are some examples of the ways that we're trying to address the specific situations where males and females aren't able to live together in the same place, depending on, their experiences and gender identity, et cetera. And so we're looking to build those types of solutions as we move forward. And those are the types of comments as Miles had mentioned if there's thoughts and ideas that you have that you want to share about the needs of our communities that you're experiencing or you're seeing, that we really want to hear from you through the survey to be able to have those considerations to help inform our plan for over the next 10 years. Jane, I see you came off camera.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've been quietly, you guys have been doing a great job answering questions. And I think that is important is it's not just that there's, males and female shelters or those that identify as, that we want to ensure that safety is of the utmost importance in all of our shelters, whether it be female or women that people that identify as female or male or co-ed. The one thing that we do have, the 20-bed new shelter that opened, Dawn House Women's Shelter back in November. And we do have a number of, there's also other sites, Interval House, that is not part of the city funded program, but is a shelter for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. And that's really the key piece is we have 163 beds currently across the shelter system in Kingston, and we continue to have capacity across the sector. So it's really, it is something that we track to see what those numbers look like, what the shifting when there's hot, those periods of time where there's an increase in demand for a specific type of shelter. Those are all the types of things that we are tracking, but we are really interested in knowing, from yourselves, from lived experience, from, working in the sector, to find out, like, post that information, let us know. This is really the opportunity where we are looking to hear from the community on what your priorities are, where you see the gaps, what you would like to see from your own experience, or information, or your where you're working and involved in the community. So thank you for that. And as we may not be able to answer all your questions, the reason is really this is about planning and gathering as much information and feedback through these sessions as we can, looking also to some of our reports and housing assessments and needs assessments that are currently available, census data, and going from there to develop a robust plan for the fall. So this is really starting it out, and keep up with any information, any comments, any priorities you want to flag, and we're happy to take those forward and bring them into as we move forward on the development of the plan.
Thank you, Kelly and Jane. Our next question is wondering about the process of the review, wondering if information is being gathered from people who became homeless about how they became homeless.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I can take that, Miles. We've already talked about the importance of engaging with people with lived experience through this process, and we certainly are doing that. So we're meeting and holding focus groups not only with people who are currently experiencing homelessness or housing precarity from the kind of the adult shelter system, but also youth who are experiencing homelessness. So getting both of those perspectives, super important, and asking those individuals directly, insofar as they feel comfortable, of course, with sharing kind of their process and the background, and how they kind of arrived in that position. We're also engaging with, as Kelly's mentioned as well, housing and homelessness providers, and so folks working in the shelter system, or providers of affordable and supportive transitional housing, and that very much will be a question for them as well. So we want to understand both what are the ways that we can kind of prevent homelessness and housing precarity, and so what has the process for the individuals that they work with, what is the process for them to kind of enter the system looked like, but we also want to look at how do we sustain housing stability once folks have transitioned out of the homelessness system. So we want to think about what can we put in place to help support those to kind of first of all, never enter the system, and second of all, once they're out, ensure that they're in a kind of stable and safe housing environment. So, yeah, lots of different ways that we're looking at that journey and talking to folks both with lived and living experiences as well as with providers.
Great. Thanks so much, Lily. And our next question is a two-parter, and I think the first part about what demographics are underserved or are not currently being served in Kingston and Frontenac County, that really gets at a question that is part of the review and update of the plan. One of those questions that will come through the development of this plan, including this engagement with community as well as review of local data as mentioned. But the second part of this question about whether funding is available for nonprofits to create new housing for those demographics, that is another question that could be answered, could be a recommendation that you put forth in the next portion of this webinar as we move into the interactive piece about what solutions, what needs do you see in the community and would you like to share? Also, moving on to the next question, we also wanted to acknowledge a question an individual brought up about a specific scenario that they'd like recorded. So I'd like to confirm that that has been recorded and will be part of the engagement information that's taken back. And if you have anything else that you're not comfortable sharing today over the webinar, or if you're not comfortable sharing it over the survey, then you can always email Get Involved Kingston and share feedback or ask for an alternative method to engage, like a paper copy of the survey or a different means if that is a barrier. Looking at the remaining questions. And looking to see which ones can still be answered today and which ones we'll take back to respond to on Get Involved Kingston. One question here is whether there's a central cross-functional team that all work together on a regular or monthly basis in terms of coordinating access and engaging with local organizations. If someone from the project team wants to speak about what existing check-ins exist with service providers.
So I can get started, and my colleagues may want to jump in. And I'll just say that there's not one table that would be doing everything. There are a number of tables on the specific topics that do meet on a regular basis to ensure system coordination and to have that collaborative sort of approach to addressing the various pressures. For example, there is an encampment response table that brings all organizations that are working in that space together on a monthly basis, I believe, to talk about that and to really sort of understand and how can they address those pressures and what trends are they seeing. There are regular meetings for our nonprofit housing providers that come together to talk about those pressures and support each other, share resources, et cetera, to support the work that they're doing and talk about sort of the trends and the pressures that they're seeing. Internally, we have various tables that come together to talk about strategic growth, affordable housing, how to allocate the dollars that we have for development. And so there are collaborative processes and tables to be able to address the strategic priorities that are in the council's strategic plan, as well as our existing 10-year plan. So there are various tables that do have those conversations on a regular basis to be able to ensure they're making relevant and decisions that are in alignment with the priorities that are in place. And Jane, I'll turn it over to you to add in.
Yeah, maybe just to add a few, thank you. There are a number of internal and external. We also work with, there's tables working with our valuable community partners. The city can't do this alone. It's really to our partners that help support the work that's being done. And that's an opportunity to come together as well. There is also a coordinated access table. The city is heavily involved in working towards a fully coordinated access system. News release just went out today, jointly by the United Way as well as the City of Kingston. The city has been recognized as having a quality by name list, which is really, we're only one of 21 communities across Canada. And what that really means is the quality of the data that's being gathered in the HIFIS system and is, accurate, provides more, specific details on inflow, outflow of homelessness. But it's just one of those tools, one of these opportunities to make sure that, we are making evidence-based informed decisions as much as possible, understanding, the needs of those that are unhoused changes and is dynamic. So it's really a combination of tables, opportunities where, whenever available, to come together and look at from a system-wide coordinated standpoint on how best to support people and support them to where they're interested and best suited in the type of housing that's available, and to work with them towards that for those that are unhoused, and helping them where they're at and how best we can move them forward.
If I can also add to that, so we also participate in a number of organizations and tables across the province and across Canada. So we're sharing resources and really engaging to understand what innovative sort of initiatives are happening elsewhere that we might be able to apply to our area as well. And so there is that system-wide sort of collaboration that's happening to ensure that we're, really working together, collectively to share our resources and our energies around these similar pressures that are being seen across the province and the country.
Great, thank you all. And then our next question here was wondering, based on high rental rates locally, how is it possible to find affordable housing? So I think it's important to know, as we do a review, to understand the existing services that are there to support individuals in finding affordable housing. If someone would like to briefly speak to existing services.
I can maybe kick that
Sure.
up. Or John, you go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that the city does oversee the centralized wait list for social housing. So that's rent geared income housing. So the city does accept applications and manages the wait list for that. So, but there is obviously there's more demand than supply. So there is longer wait times for social housing. We also have on our webpage the affordable housing listing. So those are projects that have received funding contributions from the different levels of government, and they offer below market rent. So in terms of what people could look up from home, there is the social housing option, but also the affordable housing listing that we have online.
Great, thanks so much, John. And then next question is, how are we measuring the success of the plan? And does that involve folks moving from homeless to harm reduction to housing? How will the plan success be measured? Which is a great question as well.
So I guess I can start, and Lily, you might have something to weigh in on this one. And I think that for the plan, like we're reviewing it right now, and I think we haven't decided on what those performance metrics are and what that looks like. And it would be based on what are the targets and the objectives and what it is that we're looking to accomplish in our updated plan. And part of that development process will include how are we going to measure our success and our progress through the objectives and goals that we're establishing. And so we don't have those answers yet, but they will come out of that development process as we draft the plan over the coming months. And Lily, I'm sure you have something else to add in there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly what you said, Kelly. And the only things that I would add are that it's really important that we ensure that the measures that are developed are clear so that everyone can kind of understand what those are and what those mean, that they reflect the outcomes that we're trying to achieve here so that they're directly tied to what kind of end goals we want to achieve, as well as the overall vision, and that they are transparently communicated with the public so that you will be able to see how the city is tracking towards those outcomes. And I believe that that is typically an annual reporting process. Yeah, but like Kelly said, we're really interested in your views on what could be included as measures, or what should be tracked, or how that could be done. So if you do have any contributions, would really welcome those, either via the survey, via the email that Miles has posted in the chat, or in the Q&A or chat function itself.
Thank you so much. Our next question pertains to social housing project in the township of South Frontenac, and wondering how a selection process will proceed for that project. So, if someone could potentially speak to how individual projects might select individuals compared to the city's coordinated access model that covers some housing and homelessness services, but not all.
Hi, I can speak to that. So the Verona project is being developed by the Township of South Frontenac. So the township is the developer as well as they're going to be the owner for that project. They are looking to start construction this spring. They received capital funding contribution to the project from the province, and it was approved through the city as the service manager, like we talked about earlier. And that for that project, it's about 100 units. They're going to have about 80 are going to be affordable. And a priority within that project is for seniors. It won't be all seniors, but that's the prioritization they've identified. And that was through the work that they've done at the township level, identifying where the demand is and where they see the needs. So inquiries for, of course, the project has to be built. So, you're looking at probably 18 months to 2 year construction period. But the township themselves or a partner that they'd work with as the operator would manage the applications and selection and waitlist process for that project.
Great. Thank you so much, John, for speaking to that project. And then our next question here, I think, is one that we'll have to take back and add to our webinar summary on Get Involved Kingston, which will be emailed to all project subscribers. And that is how many people are currently on the wait list for affordable housing or social housing. So we can take that back and see what information can be shared around that. We do have a homelessness registry on Open Data Kingston, which does provide some open data. And Jane, did you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, I can speak to the by name list. So there is on the site that Miles has spoken to, but also we do report through our Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee, and a lot of information in those standing update reports that are done and posted, where you can access those through the city website. We have currently about 575 on our by name list. I think it's important, and just something to point out is, and this is something that we will be looking to ensure is in the plan, is to that point, Lily, where you spoke about, the metrics and how we measure and the clarity, is also clarity on definitions and understanding. There is a lot of confusion when we're asked about affordable, there's attainable, there's assisted, there's a number of different types of housing. So it's really important, and that's something that we will make sure is that there's clarity around what type of housing is being brought forward and considered, and what that means. And in terms of the by name list, it does count the number of individuals that are accessing homelessness services. And there is a portion of those individuals that are unhoused, but there's also a number that are currently in transitional housing, in shelters, in supportive housing, couch surfing. So it's not a lot of the misconception is that it's everybody on that list is unhoused. That's not the case. There is a number, obviously, and those are ones that we're across that by name list that we want to support the people where they're at. But I think it's an important distinction to make. And I think Miles' standing update report, it would be giving the number on the central wait list. And I can probably pull that up shortly. I just don't want to throw that number out, but that is something we can follow up on. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Jane. And our next question asks whether or not there will be communications from the city that dispel misconceptions of causes of homelessness or conflating them with certain stereotypical causes. I think this is a really important question, and the city is always working to try to address misinformation and provide information and compassion about vulnerable populations in the city. And if this is something that you feel should be considered, I know there's certainly initiatives going on presently about how to tell the stories, and there's many local service providers as well. One example was Lionheart's recent art installation that told the stories of individuals who had been unhoused, but definitely something that we will take back and include, and feel free to add that if you haven't completed the survey already. And our last written in question before we open it up for more questions and also move into our interactive portion that Lily will guide us through is will there be recommendations about building non-student based affordable housing? So this is one that we can take back and include in our summary offline as well, because we'll have to cross-reference with other planning documents and processes there. Okay, so that concludes our submitted questions. Thank you all for taking the time to submit those questions about the 10-year housing and homelessness plan. I don't see any hands raised presently. If there are, we can invite individuals to come off mute, but there will be additional opportunities to interact as I hand it back over to Lily to lead us through some interactive elements where, should you not be able to attend future engagement or the survey, we'd also love to hear from you now and learn from this group. So Lily.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miles. And thanks everyone for the terrific questions. The kind of breadth that we covered there was super helpful, hopefully, to everyone. And I think it'll be great to get that kind of readout of the questions and answers after the event. So, like I mentioned, what we're using here with Mural is a digital whiteboard. And so if you scroll out, you can see the kind of template that we're working within and some of the questions that we're hoping to get answered from you folks or to discuss with you. And like I said at the beginning, one of the ways that you can interact with this digital whiteboard space that we have here is by double clicking and typing, dragging. You can kind of resize your sticky or change its color however you'd like. And you'll be able to leave those stickies in the mural board after the session as well. And so we are going to try and get everyone out of here by 7:30, being respectful of your time. So we'll kind of cover off these first two questions maybe at once, and then we'll go to a quick voting exercise that we're really interested in getting your thoughts on. The first question that we have here is just about your experience of housing. Thinking about your experience over the last few years in Kingston or in Frontenac, what has your experience been like? Obviously, feel free to contribute whatever you're comfortable with, including anything related to affordability, sufficient space, housing stability, quality, finding and keeping housing, really anything from kind of your perspectives. And then the other question that we're interested in your thoughts on is what does success look like to you for this plan? So in 10 years, we're working on a decade-long plan. That's a fairly long period of time. What would make us say, wow, this plan really worked? What would you and your community notice? Or, for example, if you work in the housing and homelessness sector, what would you and your colleagues maybe notice? What would the people that you support on a day-to-day basis notice? And we talked earlier about measures as well. So what would be kind of measurably different from your perspective? And I think if you raise your hand, Miles might be able to take you off mute so that you can jump in and share your thoughts. But you can also leave them in the chat. And in addition to that, you can jump into the mural board. I might even post the link in the chat. Oh, there we go. Miles beat me to it. One mind. Um, you can jump into the mural board and you can leave stickies, like I said, just by double clicking. So really curious about your perspectives on both of those two questions, what your experience of housing has been like in Frontenac and Kingston, and also what success looks like to you on this plan. So anyone, feel free to kind of raise your hand or jump in there.
And I'll also mention that if you click the mural link, you can join anonymously, and all information will be anonymously, but we will take back anything you share on the mural to include as part of the community feedback that is being gathered for this project, but it won't be assigned to any individuals.
Awesome. So just looking at the participant list to see if anyone has their hands raised, in particular, just on what success looks like to you for this plan. Would be really curious to hear your thoughts. And folks might be kind of I know it's a busy time of the evening sometimes for folks to be multitasking, making dinner or taking care of kids or that kind of thing. So it might be challenging to jump in and comment. But like we said, the mural board will remain open, so you're very welcome to leave your thoughts by adding stickies. Again, just double click. I can see some visitors zooming around the space. So if you did want to uh, kind of come off mute by raising your hand, and then Miles will take you off mute. If you did want to speak to what you think success would look like, what you and your community might notice if the plan worked well, what might be measurably different, and you can also leave your thoughts in the chat if that's easier for you, or in the Q&A tool. I guess there are tons of different avenues. Okay. perhaps. What do you think, Miles? Should we move on?
Sure. We can leave, like you mentioned, feel free to add to the mural board at any point. But if you'd like to move on to the polling exercise, we can also see if anyone likes to share that is hosted in Zoom. So one less step.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. What we wanted to do now was just to have think about the priorities that you might have for the plan. And so we've listed a whole range of these in the mural here, and we've programmed these into Zoom as well, so you'll be able to vote on what you feel the top, let's say, three priorities that you have are. Just to go through them very quickly before we open up the voting. So, one of them, obviously, improving access to shelters and to emergency supports. We've talked a lot about the importance of that and the importance of understanding the kind of the journey of folks who are experiencing homelessness, how they got into that position, and how we ensure that they are supported out of that in a stable, long-term way. Um, Increasing supportive housing with mental health or addiction services in particular. I know some folks have left comments in the Q&A or chat about the need to better kind of support the folks experiencing mental health or addiction challenges, which is great, again, to see that kind of understanding and compassion for the needs of fellow residents. Using city-owned or surplus land for affordable housing. There's a priority there that you might be interested in. Protecting existing affordable rentals, ensuring that those are maintained as affordable. Increasing rent subsidies or financial supports might be something that you're interested in the city looking at. Improving tenant protections. So this might not just be for rent geared to income or social housing tenants. It might be in general for tenants. Supporting nonprofit, cooperative, and community-led housing. Encouraging gentle density. So that might include things like secondary suites, laneway or garden homes to increase density in a kind of less overt way. Um, Advocating for housing development on provincially and federally owned surplus lands. Increasing supports for those experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So that's not just about, I guess the first sticky was about the shelters themselves, but this might be more about the supports that are provided to individuals. Advocating for more long-term funding from other levels of government, because obviously housing and homelessness funding comes primarily from the province. So it might be kind of a source of advocacy, advocacy might be a way to increase that. Increasing housing and related supports for Indigenous people in particular. Strengthening partnerships with community organizations is another one. So lots of different priorities there. And I do see we have something in the chat from Nicole saying that you wanted the city to take care of our homeless population as kind of a priority. We're recording that as well. And you make a really good point just around the challenges, the acute challenges that those individuals really do experience. So yeah, thank you for that comment, and we're certainly recording that, and it is a priority for the city, I know, as part of this plan. So Miles, I don't know if you want to briefly run us through the voting exercise. I know we only have a few minutes here, but we are interested in where the priorities and getting a temperature check as to where those lie.
Yes, for sure. And before we do the voting exercise, I'd also like to note there's one more question that's been added that with regards to encampments at Bell Park and measures taken there. So that will also be included in our summary to report back. And so the Zoom poll in a moment here. Thank you to those who stuck around. We'll be launching this poll, and you can select your three priorities from that list that Lily just walked us through. So that poll is launching now, so you should see that appear on your screen. This is also a question as part of that survey which we would love if all of our attendees tonight could also participate in that survey so we could gather your feedback through that. And so it looks like we have one response so far in the poll, so I'll just give it a few more seconds if anybody else has their hands free, but also completely understand it is busy and we are very appreciative of you taking the time to be here with us tonight. And a reminder, you can select three if you want to select more than one priority. Okay, so we'll end that poll here and share the current results so you're aware what this group shared as their priorities here tonight.
Okay, great. So it looks like there's certainly interest in increasing supportive housing with mental health and addiction services. Again, that came through in the discussion today and in some of the comments that we received prior to the session as well. Using city-owned or surplus lands for affordable housing development, so something for the city to consider for sure. Increasing supports for those experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Multiple individuals have noted that that's a priority from their perspective. And yeah, that's a really good point. And then strengthening partnerships with community organizations as well, who provide a really critical role in relation to housing and homelessness supports. So thank you so much to everyone who voted. And please do, I've got this up on my screen here, complete the survey if you're able to. Encourage your friends, your colleagues, your household to complete it as well, because like I said, the more data that we have on various community needs, the more we're able to tailor the plan to those needs, and the more we're also able to use that information in advocacy efforts to other levels of government as well about any needs specifically in Kingston and Frontenac. We do also have here a note about the public open house events. So there are three, just very quickly. There is one on Wednesday, May the 20th, one on Friday, May 22nd, and one on Saturday, May 23rd, all at different kind of times during the day and at different locations around the city. And those details are also available on the Get Involved Kingston webpage. We really hope that you're able to join us there as well. And thank you again so much for coming today. Like we said earlier, we're aiming to complete community and stakeholder engagement by the end of May. So there's still lots of time to get involved, and we're looking forward to hearing what folks have to say. And then we'll be providing the draft plan to the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee for approval in September and then to council in October. So thank you again for everyone for your terrific contributions tonight. And Miles or Kelly, John, Jane, anyone from the team, did you want to close us out tonight?
Yeah, no, thank you, Lily. And just thank you, everybody. We really appreciate your time, your input. It's a packed month of engagement consultation, which is really important right across, the city and county for information. So please share any priorities, let your friends know, your colleagues. We really appreciate you attending and taking the time out of your schedules to support this really critical plan that will help us over the next 10 years as we move forward in City of Kingston and County of Frontenac.
Thanks so much, everyone. Recording will be available on Get Involved Kingston, along with a summary, including those questions that we're taking back tonight. So enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.